Welcome to In the News for Friday, May 21st. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And hi, I'm Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD.
Jeff, it is iPad Pro Day.
New iPad Pro Day. Woo!
Do you have it yet? Did you get it yet? Did you get it
Not
yet?
Not yet. But you know, when I look at my deliveries app over here, it has those words that I love to see.
Watching.
Out for delivery. I love those three words. Out for delivery. It could come in any second now. It may be coming in right now.
Any second. Okay. Well, you have permission that if it comes in while we are recording, you jump up and bolt out of there because I want to see it. I'm so excited for you. So you ordered it what, a week ago, or how long ago was it?
Was it maybe 2-3 weeks ago? I forget. It's as soon as they go on, you know, and you got to be quick with those Apple things because it went online at like, it was 7. I'm in the central time zone. I'm in New Orleans, and it was like 7 a.m. But like already by like 7:07, 7:08, you see people saying like, you know, mine's not going to come until July now or something like that. So
you had to be on it. You were clicking. All right.
Yeah,
so
it
you're
reminds
getting
me of the days of old, Brett, where like, you know, when the new iPhone would come in, sometimes I would go like, you know, go early in the morning to sit outside the store to be one of the first people to get it and stuff like that. So
Right.
Now I just need to, you know, get in my pajamas and roll over and click refresh on the Apple Store app. But
I'm so excited for you. I did not pre-order. I am actually still using one of the original iPad Pros, but we can talk about that later. But I am so excited for you. And your post today for In the News, Jeff, you did a great job of linking to several fantastic reviews. Of course, everybody, you know, some of these reviewers have had it for like a week, right? Apple gives them a review unit. And so by the time that it comes out and people like you are getting yours today, people have already, you know, many of the tech reviewers have already been able to tell you what's great about it. And while some people say, of course, it's faster, it's almost everybody, Jeff, is talking about that screen, the screen on this iPad. I think even somebody was saying that it's like you can't unsee it. It's so good, especially if you compare it to like an older iPad. Almost everybody is saying the movies look better, the pictures look better. It seems like that's the biggest thing that people are going to be talking about with the new iPad.
Yeah. And, you know, it reminds me of, was it the iPhone? I guess it was the iPhone 10 that brought us the OLED screen for the first time.
Yes.
And, you know, it was just so beautiful that the blacks are so black and the colors are so good. And I love that screen. It's great. In fact, it's the reason that I will sometimes use the dark mode, because dark mode just looks so good on the iPhone. But the iPhone screen is so small. And the iPad, especially the iPad 12.9 inch iPad Pro screen, is so big that I really looked forward to seeing that. It's going to be a lot of fun. The big question, and you can sort of see this from the reviews that I linked to, is this is clearly going to, in my mind, it's clear that this is a big step forward in the world of the iPad Pro. I'm curious of how much of a difference it's going to make for attorneys. And I say that because given the beautiful new screen and given the fact that the fast M1 processor really shines, from what I understand, at least, it shines most for apps that are designed to take care of it, to take advantage of it, which is often like these graphical apps or apps that you use for processing videos and stuff like that. You know, a typical attorney is not processing a video. And so I'm going to be curious to see in like everyday use how it works. One of the reviews that I saw this week said that, I think it was maybe even the one from Federico Vitici, who is in Italy. Big one. You know, somebody pointed out that when they were just using the brand new iPad Pro for everyday tasks, looking at emails and stuff like that, they didn't even notice the new screen all that much. And then it wasn't until suddenly they brought up like a nice movie, like an HDR movie or something like that, and they were like, whoa, or started looking at photographs. And so it'll be interesting to see, how big of a change it is, and is it noticeable, or is it just a little minor thing that you're like, oh yeah, I see that too. But I mean, I look forward to putting it through its paces.
I always, attorneys, of course, always ask both you and I the same question. Do I need to buy the newest iPad? Do I need to get the newest iPad? And of course, I'm a little nerdy on this aspect. And of course you should. Why not? Why wouldn't you want the latest and greatest? But that's exactly what I was thinking too, Jeff, is like people are talking, like photographers, professional photographers are saying how great this is, or people that do, what is that app? Lumina Fusion, one of those that like does video editing on the iPad. They're like, this is fantastic. It's great. Somebody even said that it even makes you can understand with the movie Tenet, right? It's like it's so great in being able to view stuff, but that's not what typically legal professionals are doing. I know we like the entertainment component of it, but when we look at a document, it's not like we really need like the blackest blacks or the eye popping color all necessarily. It's a nice to have, but I don't know if this is one that necessarily a lot of the attorneys that we talk with all the time need to jump out and go get one.
Yeah. And, especially considering that the last update to the iPad Air, I think was fantastic because,
Yes.
it
Yes.
used to be that the iPad Pro had these nice advantages because it had the super small bezel, which meant
Right.
that more of your screen was a screen. So like you
Right.
wanted to have
Right.
as much screen as possible dedicated to like looking at things like the document that you're reading, the exhibit or whatever. But now you have that with the iPad Air. So, but on the
Yeah.
other hand, I personally love what size iPad do you have? Do you have the 12.9 or do you have the smaller
I
one?
actually have, mine's a 2018, so it's like the 10 and a half, the first
Okay.
iPad Pro. So it's closer to the 11. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the 12.9 screen.
I
Even
know
though
you do.
when I first got it, it took like a week. I'm like, this is so big. I'm carrying around a cafeteria tray. But then you quickly get used to it. And then it is just so wonderful for looking at documents that
Yeah.
are big and easy. And so, it wouldn't surprise me if some of the new whiz-bang features of this brand new iPad Pro, you're not going to appreciate as much in your legal practice, except for the large screen, which is the
Yeah.
same thing that's been there for a while now. So
Absolutely.
again,
Yeah.
I really can't, I have nothing but questions right now. And by the time that this podcast airs, I will have had a chance to look at it and I'll have the answers to these questions. But right now I'm still on the edge of my seat, very curious.
I like Harry McCracken here. You linked to that. Like, while the previous iPad Pro screen was illuminated by 72 LEDs, the new one increases that by almost 14,000%.
Yeah, just a few more.
That's insane.
Just a few more.
That is insane. All right, so that's going to be fun to look at. And the other thing quickly, and you wrote about this, like you linked to David Sparks, which of course we adore, Max Sparky, and a couple of other people sort of made some of these observations. Jeff, I'm just interested in what you think about it. Like, it makes me think of, if you remember, several years ago, Apple came out with that commercial, and this little kid was using an iPad all over the place. And at the end of the commercial, the mom is like, "Hey, what you doing on your computer?" And the kid's like, "What's a computer?" It's almost like, I think David Sparks said this best. It's almost like, when is the software, the apps, when are those apps going to catch up with the amazing hardware that we have in the iPad these days?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to me to see how that kind of goes along, because we really are, now that the iPad has an M1 processor, which is really a desktop or a laptop class processor now. It's no longer just like this mobile device. Like, it can run probably a lot of the same kind of software that maybe a Mac can run these days. We're not quite there yet, although we're certainly seeing some overlap and stuff like that. But just curious what you think about that. Like, how is this gonna work for professionals, legal professionals specifically, on, do they get a laptop or do they get an iPad? I don't know if we're quite there yet, but we're getting closer.
Yeah, I have always thought that's a little bit of I know that for some people that is a true decision. Maybe an iPad does all that you need. For me, I actually have thought it's a little bit of a false distinction, because I think any attorney is going to need a computer. I see the iPad as an accessory and as something that you do with the computer. But for some tasks, the iPad's all you need. And for some tasks, the computer is all you need. Now that this brand new iPad Pro has the exact same processor that's in the Mac computer, it really does start to beg the question. The brains are the same. In fact, some people even say, well, now that it's got the M1 processor, why not just put the Mac operating system on there? And I am so glad that Apple does not do that. I mean, that's the lazy way. I am too, though. That is literally what Microsoft does with the Windows tablet. The Windows, their Surface tablet runs Windows, but Windows is not made for a small screen. And so as a result, things that are not really made for touch, they're so tiny on the screen, it's really like the worst of all worlds to do it that way. I mean, every once in a while, I may use an app. The one I use is called Log Me In, but like a remote access app that I can see like my PC or my Mac screen on my iPad, just to get in and get out and do something. But I really want my operating system to be designed for a touch first. Exactly. Of course I can use a keyboard sometimes, or a stylus or a mouse if I want to, but I really think it needs to be touch first. So I disagree that just because it has the processor, it should have the operating system. On the other hand, I do think that it is necessary for the operating system to get more advanced. And fortunately, a couple of years, fairly recently, Apple split it so that we now have a new name for the operating system for the iPad OS. That's right. And, a name is just a marketing thing. But at the same time, I think, or maybe I hope, that it indicates that Apple is going to treat it separately and say, look, this is a different beast. What can we do with an iPad that you wouldn't do on an iPhone? And, as it becomes more powerful and you add that you have the potential for adding complexity, which is not good because you want it to be relatively simple to use. And yet at the same time, you want to be able to do sophisticated things. So it's a yin and yang battle that Apple is going to deal with. But I really hope that in a few weeks, when we have the WWDC conference and Apple previews the next version of the operating system, that we see that iPad OS is going to take a big leap forward, because it looks like the hardware already has. We just now need the software to move forward with it. And then we're going to have something really special.
I think both David Sparks talks about, right there, WWDC, like everybody's kind of looking for that in about 2 months or so, or month and a half, or whatever it's going to be. Like, hopefully Apple, a lot of times they bring up other developers on stage because this is a developers conference. And so we can kind of get an inkling of maybe where it's going on there. But those are all great points, especially that, I always say that, like, when the iPad was introduced in 2010, Steve Jobs didn't introduce the iPad as a replacement for your laptop, even though that's probably one of the number one questions I get all the time, Jeff. But you make some excellent points there. It's like the reason I think that the iPad works so well, especially with a lot of the apps that we work with, is because they are designed specifically for a touch interface and that screen, and they wall off, and you're not confused with all the different windows. Anyway, like you said, there's pros and cons on both sides, and people talk about that all the time. The last thing quickly I wanted to talk about the iPad. You hit upon it in a couple of your posts, but one of the things I'm most excited about is the new or the updated front-facing camera, and something that Apple calls center stage. So Jason Snell did a good job of talking about this here, right? To where it's a camera that will follow you around if you move around, as opposed to jumping out of the frame, that kind of a thing. I'm very excited for you to try that and see how that works.
Yeah, it looks like a fun little, I hate to say gimmick because that's a little, I will say this, most of the video conferencing that I do is much like you and I are doing right now. I'm sitting here in front of a screen within a little Zoom window. And so I'm not moving in and out and back and forth and doing all those things. So for work purposes, I don't know that this feature makes a big difference. But for family purposes, you set up your iPad in your kitchen and you're talking with the grandmother, and your kid comes into frame, and the screen will sort of zoom out to see you and your kid. And then the kid walks away and the camera zooms, or at least appears to zoom in on your face. I think that's a pretty cool feature. And although it's a feature of the new iPad Pro, it seems like it could be something that Apple brought to other platforms too. Of course, they would have to have a wide angle front camera like the iPad Pro does. But my guess is that this is not the last place that we'll see this new feature, but it's a natural to debut it on the iPad Pro. What's really interesting about it, though, is that it looks so smooth from the demos.
I know. I'm watching it. You can watch it here.
It's as if there is a camera operator who is perfectly zooming in and out on you. That requires some pretty sophisticated artificial intelligence to do it. And so I love it, because if it can do this so well as I think it's going to be, that means it can do so many other things so well too. And I love that. As our devices get smarter and better, and you're not even thinking about the technology behind it, although if you do, it sort of blows your mind. You're just thinking it's just so much more powerful and helpful. It's great.
So this is the review from The Verge, and this is Dieter Bohn, right? Is that his name? You're watching it there if you can see it. But there's one thing here, Jeff, that I am very interested to see if this works. I did a video for Apps and Law on using Zoom, like tips on using Zoom on your iPad and iPhone. And I think probably the top question I get from folks is that when you're in Zoom on your iPad or your iPhone and you click out to go to another app, for example, if you're a student and you're watching a class and you click out to go and take a note on a note app, people say the camera turns off. Well, the teachers don't like it because then they think that the student isn't watching them anymore. And so he says right here in this little caption, as a bonus, camera doesn't blank out when you multitask Zoom calls anymore. Now, that can only be done in this upgraded iPad, I'm guessing. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I'm very excited to see if that works, because that could be a big deal for the iPad and doing Zoom calls on that as well.
Yeah. I will say that one of the things that I was disappointed about is that the new, they had an opportunity with a new camera and a new system. I so wish that they had moved the camera on the iPad Pro to what I consider the top of it as opposed to the left of it, because whenever I am doing a video conference, I always have my iPad in landscape orientation. And I really don't like that the camera is on the left, because when I'm staring straight ahead, it looks to the person on the other side as if I'm looking
right.
to the side. And so what I need to do is I need to train myself when I'm using my iPad Pro, because I do use it for work video conferences from time to time, just because I happen to be somewhere where the iPad is most convenient to use. I have to convince myself to look over to the side so that the other person thinks I'm looking straight at them, but then I'm sort of looking at them out of the corner of my eye. It's awkward. Apple had a perfect opportunity to fix it, and they didn't. And
not yet.
They must know this. I mean, there must be smart people at Apple that know so many people like me want this feature. I would love to hear the argument on the other side why they haven't moved it. Like, does it not fit because of the way that you put the components in there or something? But I just think that was a missed opportunity. So.
Yeah, I hear you. And you're not the only one, like you said. All right, second topic real quick. I know it's not something you cover a whole lot, but you did mention that in addition to the new iPad coming out today, the new Apple TV, which you got some great links in there as well, but you also mentioned the newest and updated iMac, which we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but this was a good review by Jason Snell that you linked to here, to where they're talking about, I think my favorite comment in here, it's like, it's an iPad on a stand.
It is an iPad on a stand. That is exactly what it looks like. It's a big iPad on a stand. It doesn't have the touch interface, but not only does the new iPad Pro use the processor that's in the computer, one borrows from the other. Now you got the computer borrowing from the iPad aesthetic, which makes sense. Yeah, it looks like a nice new computer. This is the low end version of the iPad. Of the iMac. And I expect them to come out with a higher end version later this year, if not next year. And maybe it'll be called the iMac Pro, or maybe it'll just be a different model of the iMac. At my home, I use a 27-inch iMac. And I love it. It's a great computer, but these things are just beautiful. But no color on it.
Yours isn't colored.
No, mine is just the old silver. But what I love about this is, that when the original Mac came out in 1984, it was different, right? It wasn't just like a pizza box looking thing with a screen on top of it. It had its style. You could pick it up, and it looked interesting. It's now iconic. And then when Steve Jobs came back to the company in the 1990s, one of the first things that he did was say, let's have this new the iMac, the colored iMac. In fact, Jason Snell has a picture there so there you go, where he's got the iMac,
old Bondi,
the Bondi blue iMac. And it was an iconic computer, and I loved having it because it could do a lot. It was nice. It made some bold decisions, like getting rid of the floppy drive, which at the time was scandalous. And now people don't even know what a floppy drive is. And the save icon is still a floppy drive icon. And my kids look at that, they're like, "What is that icon? What is that referring to?" It's like, kids, we used to have this thing called a floppy disk. But that was another time that Apple made a bold design statement. But now this is the third time that the Mac has had a bold design statement, while at the same time being incredibly powerful, because this new M1 processor, it's just so screaming fast. And so I love it. I love that Apple is, in some ways, it's returning to its roots to develop this thing.
I love it. And like you said, the biggest difference here, or the addition that they had in this, is that they added the M1. Like back in November, or October, Apple put the M1 processor into the MacBook Pros, which is what I have, and love it. Cannot go back. Now we have the M1 in the new iPad Pro that you're getting today. It's not there yet, though. And now they have the M1 in the iMac, a brand new iMac. We were not really expecting that about a month ago or so when Apple made those announcements. And then in addition, just to kind of round this out with the camera, they did add a 1080p webcam into the new iMac, which I know some of it had before, but because of the M1 processor, they had some additional magic under the hood that they could see. You can see this is Jason Snell's comparing the two options here. But it's just great that, if nothing else, having an iMac, Apple recognizing, over this past year, we do need better cameras in there. We do need a way to be able to remotely attend meetings, and it's just nice that they're recognizing that.
Yeah,
That's
and in fact,
stuff.
What you're showing on the screen right now is that Jason Snell is showing off that the same hardware, the same 1080p camera on the 27-inch iMac and this brand new iMac.
Exactly.
The hardware is the same, but the picture looks so much better in the new model simply because it's got the more advanced M1 processor, which just means it just goes to show you that photography nowadays, you have to have good lenses, but that's only half of the battle. You then need to have the smarts to do something with that. And so just having a more sophisticated processor and well-written software, you can have the same hardware camera produce an image that looks vastly better, which is fabulous.
That's great. All right, good. So the new iMac, get it if you want it. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell. I know many attorneys that when they use Mac, they get an iMac, because it's just big and beautiful. But you're right. It's we'll see where Apple is going to be going. And then the last thing quickly I wanted to talk about, which I saw several people talking about these an announcement from Apple about some updates for accessibility options. Last week, you and I talked about a really nifty video you linked to an Apple support option where you could turn on and have the camera see what it's looking at and speak to you what it's looking at, right? That's an accessibility option, which I just thought was fascinating. Well, then this week, Apple came out with some even more incredible options here. You had a couple of links here, which I just thought was great, where they're coming out with some additional updates for folks with disabilities. First of all, you can do sign language when talking with Apple support. It's called Sign Time, right? Which I think is great. But even more amazing.
This is the coolest one, yeah.
This is amazing. So now they recognize that I think what they call it is
Assistive Touch.
Assistive Touch, but it's like if you're disabled in some kind of a limb or one arm or something along those lines. Let me turn the volume off here. You can just kind of watch it here. So if you have the Apple Watch, though, you can do a double clench with your fist, and the Apple Watch will respond to that. That is just absolutely fascinating. And it just kind of continues what we talked about last week with Apple, putting this focus on assistive technologies.
Yeah. And again, that's going to be immediately useful for somebody that only has the use of one hand, one arm. So now,
right.
Previously, they couldn't use an Apple Watch, and now they can. And it's also another perfect example of Apple doing something for the accessibility community that, frankly, we all benefit from. Because, and again, we'll have to see how this works in details and
right,
reality,
of course,
and how you turn it on and off. But I mean, I can imagine being in a situation where I know I'm only going to have access. I'm not going to have access to both hands because my right hand's going to be doing something else. But with my left hand, I could, clench twice to answer a phone call or do this. I mean, we'll see how it works in practice. But again, you have to put this out there so that we can all try to use it. And so it's just yet another example of Apple, have some very smart, creative folks coming up with some really cool things. And it makes for a cool demo too. When you look at the video of it, it is really neat.
But I just love it. This is a little Twitter video that you linked out to as well. But I mean, literally, if you set it up correctly, I think this is one of the things here. If a phone call comes in, instead of if you don't have another hand with a finger that you can tap it, you can double clench your fist to answer the phone call. Just amazing, just wonderful. I'm just so glad that they're focusing on some of that. Okay, well, let's do something a little bit different that we can call In the Know, where you and I can share a quick tip or an app or a gadget or something that's exciting that we wanted to share with the audience. My quick tip, I'll start off, is something that's embedded into the Microsoft Office mobile app. Uh-oh. Did you get a notification? I thought it was there. So my quick tip, I thought you got the new iPad. I thought that's why you jumped up. And
I did just open my door because it was just delivered to my firm. It is in the building. The iPad Pro is in the building, so I just popped open my door. We'll see if it comes.
Okay, we'll do this real quick then. Okay, my tip quickly is in the Microsoft Office mobile app, which is now a single app. We used to have a Word app and an Excel app and a PowerPoint app, but now for Microsoft Office, you can get a single app, which I think works great. But one of the things that they embedded into this app was different actions. And one of the actions in there is something called PDF to Word. Now, you can do a Word to PDF. We all know how to do that. But, Jeff, I still get many people asking me we got this PDF from opposing counsel and, it's not searchable, but we want to edit it or copy the text out of it. And it's kind of hard sometimes to copy from a PDF and paste it into a Word document. And so one of the things, they don't talk about it a whole lot in here, but one of the actions that you can do inside this Office app is called a PDF to Word, and it does a pretty good job. You're never going to get 100% with conversion because the way that PDFs are designed, it's not going to easily, sometimes there's weird line breaks and stuff in there, but you can get a fully functional Word document out of that, and that's all embedded and that's free within the Microsoft Office app, and it works even better if you have a subscription to Office 365.
Yeah, I haven't
So
tried
what
it yet.
quick tip
Well, I haven't tried it yet on mobile, but I can tell you that on my computer, every once in a while, you'll be working with opposing counsel, and they will send you a PDF version of a joint document, and that's annoying because then you can't edit it easily. But you can, because you could just use Word to export it to Word, and the formatting may not be perfect, but then you can say just ignore the fact that they sent you a PDF file,
exactly,
like they sent you a Word file to begin with, and you can make your edits and send it back to them. So that's great that they have that there.
Your tip.
Yeah, my tip is this app called MetaPho, which has been out for a while, METAPHO, but it was just updated with a nice update this week. It allows you, it basically adds the feature that's missing in the Photos app on the iPad and the iPhone. I wish it was there, of letting you access the metadata. Sometimes, if I take a picture with my iPhone, it automatically knows what the location it was in. It automatically knows the date and time it was taken. But sometimes I have older photos that I took with, or just even new photos that I took with a different camera that doesn't have all that into it. And it's nice to be able to tweak, here's the location this picture was taken, and here's the precise time it was taken. And that's nice because in the iPad and the iPhone, I will often, like if I'm trying to find an old picture, I will sometimes say, I know that I was at this location when we took this picture. And so I'll just pull up the map and search by location. So you want to have accurate relatively accurate locations. So MetaPho is a nice app that allows you to just very quickly add or change the location associated with the picture and add or change the time and date stamp associated with the picture so that it then shows up correctly in your Photos app. And the new version that came out this week for the iPad, it has a nice interface where it's got like a bar on the left side, much like the Photos app does. And it's very nice and easy to use. Frankly, it's a much better interface than they had before this week. So it's a great app. It's been around for a while. You can try it out for free, $5 to unlock all the features. And I use it a lot. Yeah.
That's great. MetaPho. Thanks, Jeff. And let's stop. So you can go get your new iPad. You're going to go down to the mailroom, aren't you? You're going to like, hey, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
My friend, have fun. Thanks for joining me today. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, Brett. Bye. Hey, Brett, just a second after we stopped recording, I got a box. What could be inside this box?
It's iPad Pro Day. iPad Pro Day.
It says it is. Ooh, look how fancy it is. Now, you can tell from this box that the screen is much better. Can't you just tell from the box? Yeah. So.
Even in shrink wrap. It looks great. Even in
through
shrink
the
wrap.
Shrink wrap, you can actually tell. So I look forward to opening up that box, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Congratulations, Jeff. Okay, good. We'll talk to you soon. Have fun.
Bye.
Okay, bye.